We got transferred here in the fall of, or the winter of 1992, or 1993. And we went to a couple of churches, and then we came here one service. And just when I walked in, the Holy Spirit said to me, "This is where I'd like you to be." And I felt at home, and Iris felt at home, and we've been here ever since.
Generosity to me is giving as much as I can from what's inside of me. Like it's not just giving of my money, but of my time, and being a good steward to me. That is being generous. Definitely, it's our finances. I mean, I don't know. I've often said to Rick, I'd be afraid what would happen if we didn't give. If we didn't give our tithes and offerings, like, well, for me, because I wasn't raised in a traditional Christian home, I got it from my mom. My mom just loved to give. She had a restaurant, and she was always feeding people. If they couldn't afford to pay, she would pay for it. She'd just say, that's okay. And she was just always giving, even though she didn't have much. And I really believe I learned that from her, you know.
And I probably more understood a traditional sense of giving, that I grew up in a Christian home. I had Christian parents, Christian grandparents. I saw my grandparents not work on Sunday. Even though he was a farmer, he didn't do any work on Sunday. He went to church. And as kids, we saw that. So when we became Christians in 1979, I said to Iris, I think you need to understand that one of the things or principles that I believe is that we have to honor God with our giving. We have to give and tithe. And we did. And God was very faithful in that, and we always saw his care for us.
And I just remember another thing you said when you said we have to start tithing. You said, I believe we have to back pay.
Oh, for the month before.
For the month before.
I don't know why I felt that way,
Yeah,
but I did.
he said, and I went, oh goodness, that's a lot of money. Like, thank goodness I was still working. But and I went, okay, if that's what it says in the Bible.
Yeah, and then tell the story about how you bought the groceries.
And one thing that when I first became a Christian, well, I had quit work because I was pregnant with Carl. And I know we only had about $100 in our bank account, and God audibly spoke to me and said, Iris, I want you to go and buy $100 worth of groceries, put it on this woman's doorstep, and don't tell her. And I went, oh, wow, we've only got $100. So anyway, I did what he said, and the next week we got a check, money order for $400.
Yeah.
Out of the blue.
Out of the blue, like...
Totally unexpected.
Oh,
Yeah.
like, wow, like God did this. This is amazing. And then it just, the giving, of course, I had that gift of
Then you're
giving
pretty excited about
in
giving.
me
Yes.
that it talks about in Romans. And I knew I had the gift of giving because I would just give. I love it.
I think one of the things that I really have always been impressed about the neighborhood church is the amount of things we do beyond our doors, outside of the walls of this church. I know that from being on the finance committee over the years, I know this church has given more than $1 million to missions outside of the inside the walls part in the last 15 years, and that excites me a lot. I see no limits on God's ability to use people who are generous to bless others, because he promises in his word that those that feed the poor will never go hungry themselves. And to me, that's really exciting, and I want to be part of that.
Yeah, and I just love the way the pastors are always on board, no matter what missions trip, like the Montreal missions trip, whether we're going to Cumberland, whether the women are going to India, or, you know, everybody is always on board to do mission work. I mean, look at how many missionaries we have sent out from this church. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
The missions that have begun. Like, now we have our own Tarrant Crosschild You know, we've started Child of the Cross Ministries, and like PAOC is right behind. Pastor John said, "Yes, go for it."
Yeah.
It's just amazing. I just get shivers when I think of the amount of giving that goes on from this church.
So that's excited both of us.
Yes.
There's one promise that God says you can test him in, and that's in honoring him with your tithe. You trust God with your tithe and live on the rest, he'll be faithful to you because it's an absolute guarantee. He says, test me. And a test is not a day long, a week long, a month long, it's lifelong.
Yeah.
So you need to start, begin, and go forward. And trust God. He will fulfill his faithfulness to us.
Well, and I just think everything I have comes from God. He gives us everything, and he's only asking for 10%.
Yeah.
That's not a lot, you know. And so we have to change our way of thinking when you become a Christian. You know, this isn't mine. This isn't mine. It's
all his.
God's. And you just can never ever outgive God.
Very cool church we're part of, and
Yes.
we're glad to be
Yes.
part of it, and we'll be a part of it until we're too old to do anything else.